Tundi Smith from Media Monitoring Africa. And my job is really easy. I am just here to introduce our facilitator and to welcome you to our last session of Media Freedom Festival. It's been a fantastic week. We've had some brilliant sessions, engaging topics, good discussions. We looked at the children's vision for our media on Monday. We looked at xenophobia and hate speech on social media on Wednesday. And today we are going to be looking at trends around disinformation. We're going to be touching on fact checking, why it's so important, as well as diving into a bit of information around deepfakes. But without taking up too much time, I'm going to introduce you to our facilitator for the day, Nomshado Lobisi, who is our head of communications, and she will take you through or introduce our panelists and take us through the program for today. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. It's a fantastic, very hot topic at the moment. So also please feel free to use the Q&A and chat function to post any questions or comments throughout the session. Nomshado, over to you.
Thank you, Tundi, for that introduction. It's really exciting that we are on our last day and we are definitely ending off with a bang. So before we start our discussion, I'd just like to play something very exciting. We've been working on it at MMA and now it's time for us to share it with you before we actually share a more bigger announcement after this. So please bear with me as I try and share my screen to show you this cool video. As I said, we've been working on it and we're really excited to share it with you today. Please, Tundi, let me know if the audio is okay.
Hi, my name is Eusebius McIsaac.
Audio is perfect.
Awesome stuff. All right.
Hi, my name is Eusebius McIsaac.
I'm Alan Committee.
I'm Lady Chabi.
It's me, just missing, the #1 puppet who speaks truth to power.
Some of you know me as a radio talk show host.
You know me from TV or the radio.
Now, like you, I'm also very engaged with some contentious topics that are of critical importance to South Africa and to the world at large right now.
You go onto the internet because you have a lot of questions about the world and you want some answers. The trouble is, there's a lot of information out there that looks true, that feels true, but simply isn't.
You know, when I tell you something, you can trust me, but you can't always trust everything you see on the internet.
It might be discussions around COVID-19. It could be about white supremacy and anti-Black racism. It could be about who should be the next president of the United States of America. Or you may be feeling particularly emotive about the fight against corruption here in South Africa and lapping up all sorts of material online where these issues are reported on.
That's why I'm always worried about the internet, because you can't always see when people are lying. On the internet, you can't tell. You never know, except when you're on Facebook. If it's on Facebook, it's a lie. That's what Facebook is. It's literally a website for lies.
Don't be a sheeple, people. Don't believe everything you hear. They'll pull the wool over your eyes.
Look, these are confusing times. We all have questions about COVID, about politics, about the people who lead us and the people who want to lead us. It's good to ask questions, especially of those in power. But the problem with asking questions is sometimes people give us answers that aren't true, but feel like they could be. There are people who want us to be angry because they can use our anger.
Those bastards.
I don't mean my cousin who sent it to me. I trust him completely. But where did she get the information?
Is this piece of news going to make one group of people hate another kind of group of people? Is it going to cause another group of people to feel angry or afraid?
And the more angry we are, the fewer questions we ask. Isn't that the case?
If that is true, then I have to ask, is this news worth sharing?
How do you know whether it is a disinformation campaign that you are being fed or whether it is straight journalism based on all the good characteristics of good journalism? What is the reputation of this journalist, this publication?
Is anyone else reporting this news? Are they reputable news agencies? Are the majority of reputable news agent sources saying this? If they aren't, maybe I should double check.
Like you, I like to have my worldview sometimes affirmed. And when you feel really nice about your beliefs, and your beliefs are being mirrored back in an article that you are consuming, you could be lowering your critical faculties. So I've got 2 recommendations for you. Trust your critical judgment. Be skeptical without being cynical. Ask yourself, who else is reporting on this? Why is only one news source reporting on this, even hours after I first read this first article?
Are you starting to see? It's everywhere.
Those people out there on the internet think that you're stupid, but you're not.
You're more intelligent than they think you are,
So keep thinking.
even when you think you are being given the answers.
So if you see something dodgy,
Feel free to report it.
To
.real411.org
remember, you're not a dummy, so don't let people put words in your mouth.
and leave it to the experts to make that judgment call.
Thanks for listening.
Now, if you'd like to see more of that, please do follow us at Media Matters ZA or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Media Monitoring Africa, because we've got really some cool videos lined up there. But not to steal the show from our big announcement that's coming up, I'd like to call upon our Media Monitoring Africa's director, William Bird. In the lead up of this webinar, we've been saying that we have something really cool, really big to share with you, and I'm heading over to him now to share the exciting news.
Thank you, Handel. Right, so it is very exciting afternoon, because we've been working for the last month and a half or more actually on this particular announcement, which is that we are launching our app version of Real 411. So a huge thanks to, I hope in our audience, the incredibly hardworking and lovely people that assemble. We appreciate all your efforts despite having to shout and scream on the odd occasion. So I'm going to get into doing a quick demo of what this thing does. And in essence, it will allow you to do pretty much what you can do on the screen, except now we've put the power of Real 411 into your own hands. So if you look, you'll download it and you'll get a little icon that'll say Real 411. And when you open it, you'll see a screen that'll allow you to do pretty much the same thing. Submit a complaint, view complaints. You can read about the app. There's some media content there. There's a video there that's about the Real 411. And of course, the video that our lovely colleague has just shared will also be there. So that's the app as it is there. And if you want to, you can either do things directly from there, or more likely is that when you're busy surfing Twitter, you can do the following. So let's see if you take this as a scenario. So I'm following, well, I'm not following, but I've been looking at this character because he's been reported to Real 411 a number of occasions. And if you look here, he's got a tweet that says, your daily reminder that who paid people to spread fear. Now, if I look at this and I read it, I might think, well, I think I'd like to report that to Real 411. So what I would do is open the tweet. I would start off by going, okay, well, I need to take a screen grab of this, because you always want to, in case they delete it before you can say, don't delete your terrible tweet. So I've taken a screen grab on my device, and now I go and I say, okay, well, let's go and share this thing. And you'll see that if you click share, it probably won't appear just there, but you'll click share via. And then a fuller menu of device of options will come up, including Real 411. And I tick that, and it'll see there a box says new complaint, report. And I say, yes, report. And what it does now, and my colleague said, William, are you absolutely insane to do a live demo? And I said, yes, because they always work. So let's just try that one more time, shall we? Because of course we did actually do this just before we started this, and it worked like a bomb. So I go and I click report, and I open the app, and hopefully now that's looking a lot better. What it'll open is the complaint form. And at the moment it's asking me for my name, but in the next short while, we'll be allowing you to register on here so that you can do this on a more regular basis, so that all of these details will be there. So I fill in my name and my number, 011-788-1278. And there it is. I think that this is disinformation. it looks as though the person is saying things who didn't say. Right, that's enough of a description. I can see it's already posted the URL from that. And now all I want to do is upload the image, and I go to my gallery and I click add, and it adds the image. I then tick what language it's in English. And I then click agree to terms and conditions. I click submit. And with a little bit of twirly magic, in a moment or two, it should come up with a reference number to my specific complaint, which when I go to the view complaints form, we'll see in just a moment, will magically appear. Of course, the hazard, he says, of doing it live is that these things actually do take more than a few seconds to do it, especially when you're trying to demonstrate this and how well it works. So there's my reference number, and I get a nice little visual that tells me about what to do and what happens next. And if I now go back to the app and to the viewing complaints, the complaint that I've just submitted will be there. In fact, let's just do that directly and go to view complaints. I think it's loading it up, because this is what I'd also like to show you about the other feature. So that one that I've done is there. You can see it's number 975. It says received. We won't be able to see any more details about it at this point, because of course it's just been submitted and it has to go through the DDC process. So if I go through and I find, and I go through and I can view all the complaints here, and I go to one that has been, that I'd like to then show off to my friends. I remember this one, let's say 865, and I think, oh gosh, this was a particularly egregious complaint. I can then share this, and I click share, and it says the image or text has been saved to your devices or clipboard. And now I can share it, and I think, who do I want to share this with? And I think I'd like to share it with my colleague Thandi. And I click share, and it's immediately uploaded that. And I say, and I paste the text, and now I paste the link, and I say, go and have a look at this. And it sends it off, and my colleague now will have a WhatsApp message straight into her WhatsApp box. And there it is. So you can submit a complaint, you can view a complaint, you can watch the video, or of course you can view the website, and you can see all of the other bits and pieces that are there. So in a very speedy nutshell, that's our brand new app. The bad news, unfortunately, is that we have had some delay because we use the word COVID-19 in our app, because of course we've had a lot of reports around disinformation on COVID-19. Both the App Store and the Google Store have said to us that they need more details. And so unfortunately, they haven't released this to the general public yet, but we anticipate it'll be early next week. But either way, watch our social media channels and it'll all be there. But we hope it's something that you'll find useful and will help all of us combat mis and disinformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William, for that. I see quite a number of people are already excited. So we'll definitely let you guys know when you can start downloading the app. But to give us a bit of a background of what Real 411 is, when it started, how it actually works, I'd like to call upon Azola Daile, and he's the program manager in charge of advocacy, lobbying, and litigation at MMA. And he will be giving us a breakdown of what Real 411 is and what is actually in charge of. Azola, over to you.
Thank you, Nomshado, and good day, colleagues. Azola Daile, as mentioned, I'm responsible for work around advocacy, lobbying, and litigation at MMA. My task today is very much simple, but at the same time also quite very important, in that I'll be speaking about an innovative website and now application, which we are officially launching today, as William has said, that does the good work of fighting for and defending our democracy, together with its attendant ideals. Of course, these include freedom of the media, freedom of expression, as well as the right to receive and impart information, given, of course, that the information is truthful or very much factual. So I would like to share a screen. I prepared what do you call this, a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm just trying to find now where I can actually share my screen so that you guys can follow when I speak. If you could assist, No Shadow?
Sorry, so there should be,
yes,
there should be a share screen icon. It's lit green.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Just saw it now. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Sorry about the delay. Yes, there we go. So this platform, which now can easily be accessed as you would WhatsApp or Facebook, since of course we've built an app, is called the Real 411, which is the American slang for the real or truthful information. Initially, the platform was developed to look at disinformation campaigns around South Africa's national elections in 2019. But because of the platform's success, we decided to expand the sort of project to include disinformation campaigns on an ongoing basis. But before I continue with the platform itself, speaking about the platform itself, I think it's important that I give our working definitions of what is disinformation and how it differs from misinformation, because I think that's a very important distinction, so that we don't become sort of online police, where everything that we come across on these platforms that don't sit well with us, we run to the Real 411 platform. So our working definition for disinformation is that it means what is generally known as fake news, but we don't necessarily use the term because it has been very much politicized by people looking to discredit the media for their own personal gains. So this involves digital information that is false, that is inaccurate, or that is misleading. This information, importantly, is very much deliberate and is deliberately disseminated with an intention to obscure the truth, covertly influence public opinion, and result in specific harmful behaviors. So you can imagine when this happens in instances of elections, as is it currently happening in the US today, where it can actually have consequences beyond the elections itself, in terms of who actually, runs the country, and which policies are then adopted, and who those policies work for instance. And then misinformation, as I've just said now, it's quite important to remember that misinformation is quite different to disinformation. Disinformation's primary objective, which is to mislead. Misinformation's objective is to, of course, mislead, but it's not necessarily their intention to cause harm or incite violence. So examples of this might include satire, parody, sort of false connections, misleading content. I think we've seen a lot of this if we were to look at South African headlines in recent days, as well as imposter content and manipulated content. So it is important to note that disinformation not only, sorry, I'm reading from two screens. Yes, all right. So yes, since now we know the difference between disinformation and misinformation, and the question becomes then, what then do you do when you encounter this in a platform? So the answer is quite simple, and this answer you should actually share with your friends, your colleagues, and family members. The answer is that you lodge a complaint on the Real 411 platform, either on the website or on the newly launched application. But then the question you may ask is that, how does then one lodge a complaint on this website? There's a video that I wanted to play that is a short explanation of how to actually one can launch a complaint, and I'm trying to find it. Okay, I think I might have it myself. All right, let me see. All right. Sorry about this, guys. This is a new laptop, and I'm trying to find my way around it, but I think I found it. There we go. So I'll just play this, and then I'll speak briefly about it after we're done. sing up here, come. It wasn't there, I had to play it elsewhere. Oh, sorry, my mic was on mute. I hope everyone got the video, but to explain the video basically says that once you spot what you suspect to be disinformation on any online platform, is that you go to the Real 411, www.real411.org.za. You lodge a complaint, you write what it is it incitement, is it disinformation, is it hate speech, or any of those three. You paste a link of where you actually found it. So you have to copy the URL from that particular platform where you found this suspected instance of disinformation. And for the ease of access for the people who actually deal with these complaints, you can also screenshot and send a picture. But if the disinformation itself is a video or a picture, there is also an option to actually upload. I still want to share my screen, but yes. So the next question would be then, what happens to these sort of complaints, or rather, what types of complaints are there? And there are 4 types of complaints that I'm going to show now on screen that we have. I've just recently mentioned them now, but you can also follow for yourself. So there's disinformation, which is false, inaccurate, and misleading information. And then there's hate speech, which suggests messages with malicious intent or harm to dehumanize and may lead to the incitement of violence. There's incitement of violence in itself, which is the encouragement of others to commit a crime. And there's, you know, the well-known harassment of journalists, as we've seen in recent days. I think the latest being the ENCA journalist in Cape Town, in the Lesotho Jana, with some EFF protesters. So what then happens when you actually go to Real 411 and lodge a complaint? So there is an established committee, what we call the Digital Complaints Committee. I hope my screen is actually visible on your sides, guys, and you're actually following with me. So we have the DCC, the Digital Complaints Committee. The committee is comprised of the Secretariat, which is run by MMA, and it has various subcommittees, including an appeals committee and the advisory board. So the DCC itself does not necessarily have a legally binding powers, and as such, the work is undertaken in terms of a code of conduct, is voluntary and is done in a participatory manner that seeks conciliatory resolutions of the complaint received. So we do not necessarily charge people with a criminal offense or anything of that sort, but what we seek is a conciliatory resolution to that particular complaint received, which could include also a counter sort of narrative, the truth itself of what was said to be false. So the DCC complaints compromises of the Secretariat, and these are the functions of the Secretariat. Oversight mostly of the complaints, facilitating communications and requests for information between the DCC and the complainant or respondent, giving effect to determinations made by the DCC, ensuring the outcomes are made publicly, undertaking administrative tasks, and performing other functions that may be necessary to ensure that the DCC can perform its task and achieve its desired objectives. The next is the subcommittee. Each subcommittee will comprise of 3 persons, one with legal expertise, the other with expertise in media, and the other with requisite skills in the digital sphere. And there's a picture there that sort of explains it further. And then the advisory board, what they do, or rather how they are compromised, is through various stakeholders with relevant expertise from the different sectors, including the state, civil society, industry, the media, and academia. And then there's the Appeals Commission, which then is comprised of one or more retired judges. So of course, this gives this thing credence, as we know judges to be very much objective and truthful at all times, and other senior professionals within the law or with relevant experience within the law. So the functions of this appeals committee shall include the following: to consider the outcome of a complaint in which a complainant or respondent feels aggrieved by the determination made by the subcommittee. So the subcommittee says that my post is false, I feel aggrieved, I come to the appeals committee. That's one of their tasks. The other one is to make a determination of whether a complaint in which the members of the relevant subcommittee were not able to reach consensus. So if there isn't consensus, they do the tie breaking. The appeals committee does the tie breaking, making a determination on any complaint referred to it by the Secretariat in light of the complexity or public interest in the outcome of the complaint. And then also lastly, it is to prepare an opinion on the relevant matter as may be requested by the Secretariat. So that is what happens to a complaint that is lodged, and these are the people that are behind determining whether something is indeed what you call disinformation or actually is not necessarily harmful information. So without being long, I'd also like to speak about a network that we've initiated as part of this work. So as part of combating disinformation online, we have also initiated a community of what I refer to as digital activists, commonly known as spotters, and we call the network the Spotters Network. It's comprised of media practitioners, of teachers, college and university students, as well as just generally democracy-loving South Africans. So what they do basically is they actively look at online platforms for instances, as I've explained previously, of hate speech, of harassment of journalists, disinformation, and harmful language. They go and lodge these complaints on the Real 411 site, and of course the committees, the DCC itself deals with those particular complaints. So also I have a video actually, or a testimony from one of the spotters themselves in terms of the work that they do and what knowledge they've gained since joining the Spotters program. And I'd like to play that particular video as a parting shot. Let me just find it for you guys. Oh, there we are. Nice. Oh, there we are. Let's see.
Azola, can you please just put up the volume? It's a bit low. We're not able to hear her.
Okay, I tried to put it on top. It's low on my side as well. Okay, and I found it. Let's try again. Is it better?
No, it's not. I think your laptop volume is that on high. Your actual laptop volume.
Yes, it is on high. Let me rather play it on my laptop then, rather than playing it here.
All right, I think that will work better. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I also think it will work better. All right, finding it. Pardon me for the delay, colleagues. Technology and its glitches. Almost there. It's taking quite a long time, and with respect to time, I don't want to be over my time. Maybe I can play the video towards the Q&A session, just to hear from the, one of the spotters themselves. But yes, thank you very much, Nomshado, and I hope I've been clear. Otherwise, I can clarify anything that I've missed during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Azola, for that. And I'm sure it was just the sound settings of your Zoom, but we will definitely be uploading this video for you guys to have a look at it on our Twitter page at Media Matters ZA. It's really exciting to have South African citizens, take charge and have a role to play when it comes to combating disinformation and misinformation. Now, Azola covered, the tools that you can use in order to report, but most importantly, Real 411 has been playing a very crucial role in ensuring that the citizens themselves has the power to do something about the false information that they come across. But up next, I think it's covering a very big question that everyone is asking, and that is, how can you tell the difference from what is real and what is not? How do you fact check yourself? How do you know that what you're sharing is something that is actually having credit or not? And up next we have Katie Clifford, and she's a researcher from Africa Check, and she'll be unpacking, and giving us pointers and tips on fact checking, and also giving us practical examples that they have come across themselves. Katie, I see you are ready.
Thanks, Nomshado. And good afternoon to all of you. It's good to be here. Thanks to MMA for having me. As mentioned, my name is Katie Clifford. I'm a researcher at Africa Check, and we are the continent's leading fact-checking organization. We've been around since 2012. We started with just 2 staff members in our Johannesburg office. But we've grown a bit since then. We now have 3 other country offices in Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal, and a staff of about 13. And the aim of our work at Africa Check, we really would like to achieve a broad range of goals. One is to make accurate information more easily accessible to the public, to policymakers, to the media. But we also look to foster a culture of fact-checking across Africa so that the public and journalists can become better fact-checkers. But I would say the bulk of our work really relies on fact-checking as a means to reduce the spread of mis and disinformation on public platforms. So that could be the internet, that could be print media, it could be broadcast media. How this works in practice can sometimes be a bit of a process. When it comes to our more traditional fact-checking work, the first step is, of course, to select a claim. And this is way easier said than done because hundreds of claims are made every single day. We know that we can't possibly fact check all of them, but how do we ensure that we're fact checking the most important ones? And so we've actually developed a set of criteria that can help us to make these decisions. I think a helpful starting point is that we can't fact check statements of opinion. We can only fact check statements that have been presented as hard facts. So a claim like the ANC is the worst government in the world, that would be quite difficult to fact check. But a claim that says the ANC promised to build 100,000 houses in 2019 and only built 50,000, that's something that we could fact check. So if a claim is presented as fact, we will then ask, is this a topic that's important to society? So broadly speaking, does it matter whether we fact check this or not? And what harm, if any, could come from not fact checking the claim? After that, we'll ask questions like, how big of an audience or reach does the claim have? And working that out can be affected by who made the claim. So was it a prominent politician or media house? Where was the claim made? And how much has the claim been picked up on, either in traditional or social media? And then lastly, we try to work hard to ensure that when we are covering a debate, we don't focus unduly on any one side. So that's picking a claim. Once you've done that, we will always get in touch with the person who made the claim and ask them for their evidence. Sometimes this goes really well and you get exactly what you're looking for. Other times you have to go on a bit of a runaround. But once you know what the claim was originally based on, you can then test that against the most recent publicly available data on the topic. But I think an important step for us is that we also accept we don't know everything. We're not experts, so we will try to contact a number of experts in that field and ask for their thoughts. And that's always very helpful because you never know what you could have missed during the course of your research. And at the very least, you could get some really interesting context and analysis around an issue. So based on all of this information, we will then decide on a verdict, and that could be anything from correct to incorrect to a mixture of both. But before we publish these findings, we always take them back to the person who made the claim and give them the opportunity to comment. And this is important because we're not trying to catch people out. We're not trying to make a spectacle out of the fact that they got something wrong. It's really more about trying to inject accuracy into public debate. And hopefully people can be receptive to that and can be more responsible going forward. The last step then is to write up your fact-checking report step by step. We always name all of our sources, we link to all of our evidence. And again, that's really important because we want people to be able to replicate our work, understand why we came to the verdict that we came to. So that's really the process of our more traditional fact-checking work. It's perhaps helpful to journalists or researchers or members of the public who are interested in this kind of thing and who maybe want to take up fact-checking as a way to hold politicians or public officials accountable for the things that they say and promise. But I think probably what a large majority of people may be more concerned with is how do I do this on social media? How do I identify mis and disinformation on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, even WhatsApp? And doing this could involve some of the steps that I've mentioned above, but I also think that social media has changed the ballgame a little bit in the sense that there's such a large amount of people that could possibly be exposed to false information. And the speed at which false information can spread and go viral is astounding. Again, hundreds of claims are made on social media every day, and try as we might, we can't possibly address them all. But if we can equip people with the skills to do this themselves, then that may be a more effective and efficient response. So one of the things that we have been trying really hard to emphasize is just to get in the habit of pausing before you share content online. I know it can be very easy to fall into the trap of, wanting to be the first person to share a piece of breaking news or information with your family and friends. But particularly when that information is making you angry, panicked, a little bit scared, your ability to reason in that moment and really interrogate the details is reduced. And that's when you're most likely to share before you've stopped to think about what you're actually sharing. And I think in a way, disinformation is almost designed to work like that. We're seeing it at the moment with a voice note that's doing the rounds on WhatsApp claiming that South Africa is going to be experiencing another second hard lockdown. And that's something that people are obviously genuinely concerned about. So you can see why people may feel tempted to share that information. They want to warn their friends and family. But if in moments like that, we can kind of take a step back, pause, think, how is this information making me feel, and understand that, we believe we might actually see a significant reduction in the spread of mis and disinformation online. Something else that we are encouraging people to do is to interrogate the details of a message, a video, or even an image. So can you identify where it came from? A lot of these false messages won't say who wrote it, it won't list a source, and that's immediately a red flag. I also always say that Google is your friend in this situation, so don't be afraid to pull up your search bar and put in the details of the message and see what comes up. Are there credible websites that can corroborate what is being said? Is it possible that maybe the picture or the video that you're looking at is real, but was maybe taken 2 years ago or was from another country? So really try to interrogate those kinds of details. And if you're not having any luck there, then my advice would be to visit a website like AFP Fact Check South Africa, Real 411 Africa Check. If we haven't fact checked the message, then we can at the very least point you in the right direction in terms of further resources. What I want to touch on lastly, though, and what I think is really the message to drive home here is why. Why does it matter? Why do we do this? Why should the public do this? And I think one of the reasons that's been most evident to us this year is false information can really lead to misunderstanding around health matters. We've seen the impacts of COVID-19, the mis and disinformation doing the rounds, and the chaos that that's caused. From our side, the content has been quite varied. So in the beginning, we were seeing a lot of conspiracy theories around the origin of the virus, feelings that certain people or governments knew that it was coming, theories about who may be more affected by the virus than others. So one of the more concerning examples that we saw was this claim that Black people, by virtue of their genetics, are immune to the coronavirus. Of course, the danger there is that people may believe this and they may not take the precautions that they should be taking because they think that they will be fine, and thereby putting their lives at risk. One of the other common things we saw was a lot of kind of old pictures and videos being used out of context, almost in an attempt to portray the situation as being much worse than it actually was. So I remember one of the weirder ones was a picture of doctors lying on the floor of an operation room. And the claim was that these doctors had recently treated a COVID-19 patient and had passed out and died. But when we did a reverse image search on this picture, we found that it was actually a still from an episode of Grey's Anatomy. And then probably the most common type of messaging that we had to counter were the false cures and remedies. So these were claims that inhaling hot steam could cure the coronavirus, that drinking bleach could prevent you from contracting the virus, or that alcohol may have the same effect. So these are claims that, if taken seriously, could actually have very harmful real-world consequences. But it doesn't just stop there, because false information can also stir division and unrest within a society. We see this almost every year around the topic of xenophobia. Without fail, at around a certain time of the year, we see pictures and videos circulating online, and these claim to show xenophobic violence. But when we look into them, we find that they have actually been taken a couple of years ago, or that they were not even taken in this country. So just content that's been taken completely out of context and used to push a certain narrative. And in the same way, that kind of false messaging can do things like create economic and financial harm. It can distort policy decisions. It can distort a voter's decision in an election. And I think to some, that's really what it comes down to, is that people are making decisions all the time. And sometimes these can be small things that don't have much consequences, but sometimes the consequences can be very, very harmful. And those decisions should be based on accurate information. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kaylee, for that, and also emphasizing the importance and the impact that it actually has to bigger issues that you face in different countries, you know. But just to also thank Corinne for making yourself available. I know we've got different time zones and really had to ask a lot from you for joining us today. But up next, we're going to be tackling a very big topic, and that is deepfakes. And I think a lot of people, or some people, still do not know actually what a deepfake is, or what it looks like, or what exactly does it have anything to do with disinformation or misinformation. So up next to unpack that for us, we've got Corin Fife, and he is a senior coordinator for emerging threats and opportunities at Witness. Thank you once again for joining us, and over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nomshadow. And I'm really happy to be here. I was so impressed by the rollout of the Real 411 app. Firstly, that's a great job, and everyone involved in that should be proud of it. And also, Kaylee, thanks for your presentation and really explaining how tackling misinformation is not just something that happens on social media and the internet, but it has such real-world consequences for public health, for people's physical safety and security. So really important work. So yeah, I'm here to give a short introduction to deepfakes. Now I've gone against, Tandy said to me, oh, bring one or two examples, you don't need to make a presentation. But as soon as I started to put the examples together, I thought, well, a presentation is the obvious way to do this. So I hope that's okay, and I'll try and get through this pretty quickly because I don't want to go over time, but there's so much to say. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Let me see, will I have permission to do this? Yes. Share screen, and with the with the sound too. Okay, now if I go into present mode, are you now seeing that full screen?
Yes,
we
we're seeing it.
Yeah, okay,
Fantastic.
great. And there'll be some sound in the video, so also let me know if there's any problem with that, but you should get all of it. So yeah, this is a short overview of deepfakes. This is me, Corin Fife. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Emerging Threats and Opportunities Research at Witness, and Witness is a global human rights nonprofit. We support people who are using video specifically to document human rights abuses and as a tool for activism. And with my research program, I'm looking at everything that is a threat, everything that's a technological threat to the integrity of video. So that ties into misinformation and deepfakes and other forms of manipulating video too. So there's really two parts of what I'm gonna say today. As I said, very quickly, because there's so much that I could say. I'm gonna give an overview and a typology of synthetic media. I'm using the term synthetic media here because we use this phrase deepfakes to mean a lot of different things, and there are many different techniques, different ways of using artificial intelligence to manipulate images and videos, and it's important to think about the distinction between them and what are the kind of strengths and weaknesses, or really the different kind of threats and opportunities that each present. And then I'm going to give a few quick tips that could be useful for journalists and fact checkers, and then perhaps we can get into that a bit more later. And I do also have some interactive parts to it as well. So for everyone who is watching along, I might get you to post some things in the chat. So I'm just going to run through a few different examples. So the first is this is a face swap, which is really the classic kind of deep fake, just pasting one face onto another. And I think you in South Africa will recognize the lead character in this one.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Are you hearing that audio?
Yes, we can hear it. It's perfect.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal. Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal? Hello,
okay,
Hal,
so
do you read me?
I'm just showing short clips for the sake of time. So there you have Elon Musk in 2021, A SpaceX Odyssey. What I like about that clip is that it shows it's not just capturing his face and pasting it over that classic scene from Space Odyssey, but if I go back to it, the patterns of the light, I really like this part where he comes from the light into the space.
Hello, Hal, do you read me?
It's quite a high level of realism here, even if it isn't necessarily perfectly convincing. So we'll move on from there to a different kind of technique, which is a lip sync. In this one, there is an original video backing track, you could think of it. So this was a video of Mark Zuckerberg making an announcement, something related to Facebook. And it's just that the lips and the mouth have been synced to a different audio track.
I wish I could keep telling you that our mission in life is connecting people, but it isn't. We just want to predict your future behaviors. Spectre showed me how to manipulate you into sharing intimate data about yourself and all those you love for free. The more you express yourself, the more we own you.
So that's from a project called Spectre by a British artist called Bill Posters, where it was about big data and surveillance capitalism. And he used this deepfake technique to have various people within tech confessing, I should say, their evil intentions. So the first two techniques that we've seen require a lot of advanced preparation. So you take your source video and your target video, there'll be then a lot of rendering happening to get a certain level of realism to it. But that then is fixed. You only have whatever material you input into the system. This one we're going to look at is real-time expression mapping. This is a technique which allows an input from a webcam to drive the target face in a kind of, as if it's a puppet, really. So what you'll see here is someone looking into a webcam, and in the background you see a rendering of George W. Bush, and he's responding to all of the gestures and facial expressions that the input actor is making.
We present a novel real-time facial reenactment method that works with any commodity webcam. Since our method only uses RGB data for both the source and target actor, we are able to manipulate YouTube videos in real time. Here we demonstrate our method in a live setup. On the right, a source actor is captured with a standard webcam. This input drives the animation of the face in the video shown on the monitor to the left. A significant difference to previous methods is the re-rendering of the mouth interior. To this end, we resynthesize the mouth interior of the target actor using video footage from the training sequence based on temporal and photometric similarity.
So in terms of the threat that this presents, you could really imagine how this sort of thing, especially now that so much of our work life and even personal life is happening over Zoom and other video chat apps, actually you could be talking to someone through an app and they could think that they were speaking to one person, and in fact it could be someone completely different. So the reason that I was talking about a typology of deepfakes at the beginning is that often we think of these swapping faces, expressions, and things like that. But there are new ways to use AI to manipulate objects and backgrounds and other forms of video manipulation that could just as easily be used to spread misinformation. So here I'm going to be looking or showing you a commercial tool. This is something developed by Adobe, and it's called Content Aware Fill. And this is something which is just a function built into the Adobe suite of video editing software.
Hey, what's going on, Internet? In this video, we're going to talk about the brand new Content Aware Fill tool inside of After Effects. I hope everyone's having an awesome day today. My name is Josh Noel, and I'm from Sunduck Films. In this video, I want to talk about the brand new tool Adobe brought to After Effects called the Content Aware Fill tool. And if you've used the Content Aware feature inside of Photoshop before, you know exactly what this tool can do. And what this tool allows us to do is easily take certain objects out of a shot and replace it with something similar from the background. So let's go ahead and jump into the tutorial and let's learn how to use this tool.
As you can see there, this is providing a very user-friendly interface to the tool. In fact, you can see on this screen here, essentially you just click and drag a box around the object that you want to remove. And that generated a pretty convincing output video where it seemed like there was just a blank stretch of road and the car had pretty much disappeared. If you look at it closely, you can still see some outlines, but it's the kind of thing that if you just looked at it briefly, maybe if it was shared in a small file size over WhatsApp or something like that, it probably would look pretty convincing unless you knew to specifically look for something that was out of place. And as well as this copy pasting and this switching of faces and facial expressions, you can now also transfer people's full body posture and gestures from a source video to a target video. And this is an example that I really like.
For instance, this way, we could take a video of a professional dancer, then record a video of our own, let's say moderately beautiful moves, and then transfer the dancer's performance onto our own body in the video. Let's call it motion transfer. Have a look at these results. How cool is that? As you see, these output videos are quite smooth, and this is not by accident. It doesn't just come out like that. With this technique, temporal coherence is taken into consideration.
So this example is, this is it's kind of funny as it's presented, it's interesting, but in terms of the threat that it poses, very easy to imagine that some video of one person could be put into a position that was either, it could be threatening, it could be something that seemed sexually compromising, could very easily be weaponized to attack people's character in a certain way. I'm gonna skip this one quickly just for the sake of time. So another thing to recognize is that deepfakes can be used, or deepfake technology can be used to generate entirely new faces, as well as just to transfer the expressions from one face to another really existing face. GANs in the title here stands for Generative Adversarial Networks. It's a type of artificial intelligence. I won't go into the specifics now because it's not important to understand that exactly. But you might have seen websites in this kind of format. This X doesn't exist, like this meme does not exist, this person does not exist, and so on. And what these are demonstrating is these GANs, generative networks, that have been trained with a huge sample of input images, so people, cats, housing rentals, as you see here, and they learn to generate new versions. They learn the conventions of a face or a cat, whatever, and they can output very convincing new versions. This is where I'd like to do a little bit of interactivity. So please, I'm going to show you some examples. I have a few different screens where there are two faces, one of which is fake and generated by a machine. And I would like people to say whether you think the left-hand side or the right-hand side is the fake. So let's go to example one. Let me see. I can't actually see the chat from this screen share. So tell me what people are saying if anyone's posting. So what do you think here? Is it the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Which one? Let's tell me which one is real. As I said, maybe someone from MMA can tell me if there's any responses in the chat.
So we have a few that are saying that the right, quite a number are also saying left.
Okay, so in this one, the left-hand face is real, and the right-hand face, this is completely simulated by a computer. Okay, so let's go to the second example. Again, tell me which face you think is real. Is the left-hand face real, or is the right-hand face real?
I think it might be a tough one because people are still thinking. So far we've got, okay, left, right is real. It's an even one.
Okay, we're 50,
right,
so half of you are right and half of you are wrong. So the left-hand face here is the real one, and the right-hand face is computer generated. Okay, let's do one more. In fact, let me try. Let's do this one. What do we think?
So far, we've got right and left. Majority. Okay, it's majority are saying left.
Well, in that case, the majority is wrong because the right-hand side, the man here is real, and the woman is generated by a machine. So, I mean, as you can see, this is really a high level of realism, and there are some telltale signs if you know what to look for. And I'm just going to go over these quickly. But first, you might think, okay, this is kind of this is fun and interesting, but how would it apply in the real world? And so that I want to quickly introduce you to Oliver Taylor, as I put his name in quotes. This guy, you might take a look at him and think, oh yeah, sure, nice looking guy. This was a face generated using the same techniques. It was a fake face that was used. Whoever was behind this attack, we don't know who, posed as a journalist, created a whole profile around this guy, and published articles which were very critical of a certain group of activists who were very active in the Palestinian rights movement. And this guy published some articles, in fact, in some reputable magazines, until someone realized that actually his photo was a deepfake. So how did they know? Let's take a look. So one of the things that you can often see is, we'll call it a dreamlike background. So the system has learned how to generate a face, but it has also been given all of these photos that contain different background elements. And it's hard for it to work out what makes a realistic background. So here you can see there's this kind of strange warping. It's hard to tell where he would really be with these kind of blurred and warped tiles. The second thing is that the GANs have a difficulty in doing things with very detailed texture. So here it's like he's wearing a shirt where the two sides of it are slightly different. They look like they have a different kind of fabric, which, you know, of course, would make it a very strange shirt. Bad teeth, not in the sense of, you know, missing teeth and bad dentistry and anything like that, but just that, again, the exact texture of the teeth is hard to get right. So here you can see that one of the teeth is kind of going into his lip. There's another tooth that it isn't really quite there. It looks slightly transparent. And then a few other very small things. For some reason, having lots of strands of hair out of place is something that's a hallmark of images created like this. I'm not sure exactly why, but it often happens. And you can see, again, this subtlety, the reflections in his eyes, if you look closely, look like they're coming from a slightly different light source. They're coming from a different angle. So these are very, very subtle things. If you know what to look for, you can find out. So in terms of analyzing the threats, important things to consider are, is a deepfake created for a mass audience? Is it made to fool everyone? Or is it something that could be micro-targeted in the same way that, as I mentioned, maybe you could do a Zoom call or something like that with this, real-time facial mapping, just to fool one specific person and start a fake news story or something like that, or perhaps, you know, withdraw money from a company account. Is something hyper realistic so that it's gonna survive scrutiny, or is it fit for purpose? Is it just good enough that it's gonna fool someone who's not looking closely, but that might be all you need? And that's related to a question of, is it fixed? Is it something that needs to be rendered in advance but won't be changeable? Or is it something that actually has flexibility, again, like this real-time puppetry, and can be adapted, but would be more easily detectable? So deepfake technology is very sophisticated, but it's not foolproof, and there are a lot of ways that we can try and detect it. I won't go into these in detail now, and perhaps we can talk about these kind of things in the discussion. But what we would recommend as an approach to dealing with this is, firstly, learn what kind of glitches we typically see and look for those in the images. You know, for me, having studied these things before, when I looked at the real or fake left and right, it's actually pretty obvious which one is which if you know what to look for. The second thing is use the traditional techniques of video verification and media forensics. There's a lot you can do with free and open source tools to determine the veracity of a video. And then the last thing is that increasingly we're seeing tech platforms roll out tools that will help to detect deepfakes. Microsoft has a big project about that at the moment called Reality Defender. This is something that journalists can apply to use. There are some other projects in the works from Google and others. So we are seeing commercial tools to help detect deepfakes as well. And part of the advocacy that we do in Witness is making sure that these are available to journalists and fact checkers and activists all around the world. So that is, sorry, I know I've gone slightly over time, even though I've tried to be quick, but that is, that's a brief overview of deepfakes.
Thank you so much, Corinne. And I think actually the whole audience can agree with me when I say that this is really scary, how authentic it looks, how perfectly crafted it is, and most importantly, how manipulative it is. And I see one of the audiences actually asked something that I was gonna go into now, but also to remind the audience, please pose your questions in the Q&A. We are about to go into our question and answer session. I'd like to thank all the panelists for their inputs, and I think their presentations really opened quite a lot of insightful things that us as public, we didn't know. But just to follow up on Corinne's presentation, one of the things I think even one of the audiences, as I said, touched on is how do you counteract this? And particularly, you know, how do you equip the public to be able to distinguish them from, you know, real and what's fake stuff? And I'm looking at the context, for example, for South Africa, where, I mean, Africa in general, where digital literacy is such a huge issue. You know, how do you counteract such issues when it comes to digital, you know, spaces? But most importantly, one of the examples, one of the participants mentioned here is that people will soon be removed from incriminating photos. And she's thinking around the examples of police brutality in the USA, and get away with it, literally get away with murder.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm really glad that the person asking that brought up that specific example. What I would say, I mean, I have some thoughts, and Kaylee, you might want to respond as well from a fact-checking and media literacy perspective. But though the capability of deepfakes is scary on the one hand, on the other hand, it's actually just a new way of doing something that people have been trying to do for a long time, really for as long as we've had media at all, we've had media manipulation. So in this question of removing people from photos, someone else who was very famous for doing this was Stalin under the Soviet Union. You know, he would have people who were senior associates in his government, and they would suddenly do something to cross him. And he would have people murdered, he would have people executed, and then retrospectively get people to manipulate photos by hand, to actually cut people out, to paint over details, and to then republish these photos and try and erase people from the historical record. And so the way that we combat that, you know, now just as in the past, is through diligent journalism, through corroborating multiple sources, through learning to detect these signs of manipulation, which, you know, are different for digital manipulation than analog manipulation. But yeah, I don't mean to give the impression, although this technology is very sophisticated, but it's not foolproof. We shouldn't panic about it, but we should really try and invest in the institutions that help us to discern truth from fiction.
Thank you so much. And Kaylee, I know we touched on the counteracting part, the South African context. From Africa Check, you know, what are the things that have been working for you when it comes to, you know, making the public aware of any claims that have been made and are apparently false?
Well, we've relied a lot on social media, and this year, and as well as last year, we've really been experimenting with different forms of communicating our fact checks. Whereas, for example, on WhatsApp in the past, we may just have been sending people links to fact checks and hoping that they would read them. We're experimenting with things like voice note shows, where we're actually thinking a bit more creatively around how to convey accurate information in a way that is entertaining for people, in a way that is maybe not so serious, but kind of fun and interesting. So we've had great success on a voice note show we do on WhatsApp called What's Crap on WhatsApp. And we send this voice note out to about 6,000 subscribers at the moment, twice a month, and it really just is 2 or 3 fact checks, debunks that we have been receiving that have gone viral on WhatsApp that we debunk in a voice note, and it's kind of fun and interesting and a light-hearted way of conveying that information.
All right, so we thank you for that, Kaylee. So we've got one question also from the audience, and this is particularly for Corinne. It is whether is video conferencing safe? Does video conferencing apps like Zoom have facial recognition and voice?
Yeah, so I can't see this exact question, but is this, are we asking about whether the software platforms are safe, or whether someone could fool you using a deepfake through it?
I think they are more interested in software such as Zoom, such as Skype, and yeah, definitely any software that has to deal with that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is definitely something that a lot of people are concerned with now that, as I said before, so much of our lives seem to be lived through Zoom. An important thing to look at is the encryption, the use of encryption in these platforms, and the standards that they're using and the way that it's implemented. Zoom, I know, initially said that they would not encrypt their chats for people with the free account. As far as I know, they backtracked on that because I think that was criticized. There are some other video conferencing platforms that are considered to be more secure. So Jitsi is one that I sometimes use. It's open source and has been reviewed by people within the InfoSec community, and it is generally thought of as being very secure. I suppose it also, as with deepfakes, misinformation, and anything like that, I would say that it's important to think about what your threat model is. Sometimes we all have a habit of imagining the worst possible threats, even if it doesn't really have relevance to our lives and the type of attacks that someone would conduct against us. So, it's very easy to think, oh, what would a government agency be capable of in terms of surveillance? What would a foreign spy agency be able to do? And they might have a lot of powerful techniques available, but most everyday people are not really at risk of being targeted by that kind of thing. On the other hand, if you are an activist or a journalist, then that kind of thing should be in your threat model. And there are plenty of ways that you can protect yourself by using encrypted email, using apps like Signal, which also does a really great job of security, and things like that. So I think it depends on your placement exactly. But if you are at risk, it's definitely worth consulting with security experts about that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks for that. And we've got one more question, and that is, do you think that deepfakes can have terrible consequences with regards to bullying and harassment online?
Yeah, I think that this is a really important question to ask. I would say the answer to that is absolutely yes. And in fact, those kind of use cases are much more likely than sometimes these high profile political cases that people imagine, someone might deepfake the president or something like that. Well, in those situations, high profile figures have a lot of resources at their disposal to debunk these things, and they have big platforms to put out the truthful version of events. At the moment, overwhelmingly, the use case that we see for deepfakes in the wild is pornography. It was something that was first invented as a technique to put the faces of famous of actresses onto the bodies of pornographic actresses. That's still something that is apparently, according to a recent report, about 95% of deepfake videos that we find on the internet are pornographic. So this is the kind of thing that we really should be concerned with. And I suppose, as I said in a previous answer, this is just a new way of doing something that's been done for a long time. Any women or minorities who are in the public eye tend to be much more frequently attacked than men do, more frequently attacked than white men particularly. And so we should really bear in mind the people's kind of marginality or privilege when dealing with these kind of things. And I think it will be really important to build infrastructure to support people who are facing these kind of cyber attacks.
Actually, thank you for touching on the gender issue, which is something I was going to go into next. But let me take one more technological question, which is in terms of threat modeling, to what extent is commodity hardware available for consumers in this space?
Yeah, well, so one of the trends that we see with deepfakes, as with pretty much all technology, is that it starts off being something that requires a lot of technical sophistication to implement, and it slowly becomes more and more consumer friendly. So, you know, it used to be something where you would have to be a software engineer to really deploy any of this deepfake creation technology. And you would need, as I can see in the question, you know, yeah, you would need an NVIDIA, you would need a specialist graphics card or other hardware. Now you can get apps which will create a very basic kind of deepfake. So there are apps where you can upload a still image and it will animate it and map that onto your face. Also, bear in mind, this is really what Snapchat filters and Instagram filters are to some degree. You know, I can have a filter that makes me look like an elf with big eyes, or a vampire for Halloween or something like that. So this is commercially available, and it will become more realistic as the technology progresses. So I think that's why we're having these discussions now, while the technology is very new, about what's the responsible way to deploy it, what's an appropriate way to respond, you know, what use cases should be allowed and which things should be restricted. But the field is still very much evolving in that respect.
So touching back to the gender issue, Kaylee, Azola, you can come into here. What are the trending, links to this? I mean, women and children are mostly the victims of this. What cases have you come across where you've seen a linkage in terms of trends when it comes to, disinformation, misinformation, or targeting in terms of harassment and incitement to violence?
Maybe Kaylee, as someone who fact checks, would be able to answer that, please.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I can't say that we have noticed any particular trends. I think, as with other issues in South Africa, as you mentioned, Umshada, women and children are often the targets of these kinds of things. Our work doesn't really delve into that kind of area, though. Our work really stops at the point of fact checking something and trying to convey that information to the public. But I think there could be some interesting research coming out on things like that, particularly in the realm of who is more likely to spread misinformation. We've done some research on that, and that is across trends, across gender, across age, across generations. And also things like, who is more likely to share information, and how does sharing fact-checking with people, well, how does that change their behavior going forward? Is it more likely to change their opinion? Are they more likely to share information? Are they more likely to not?
Thank you for that, Katie. Azola,
Like
anything to add?
Yes, please. Thank you, Nomshado. So I wanted to add that although these campaigns might not be directly targeted towards children and women, or women and children, I think they are the people who bear the most brunt in society, as we've seen in other sectors where things are not necessarily directed at them, but the consequences of become most on women and children. So as Kelly has said, there is an interesting aspect around research in that aspect.
Thank you so much for that. So if there aren't any questions to ask, I would like to wrap up my session. I mean, it was so insightful. I've learned quite a lot of things, especially when it comes to deepfakes, and more interestingly, what MMA is doing, what Africa Check is doing. And that is very important work when it comes to combating such serious digital offenses that seem to be getting more sophisticated, seem to be becoming more of a trend that you see online. And I think the key things to look at here is, how do we actually build public awareness around this? How do we end up putting it out there that there is such things such as Real 411, there's Africa Fact Checking, and etc. But I definitely think that everyone in the audience can agree with me that we had such a wonderful panelists today of presenters, and we've definitely learned a lot. And from me, I'd like to say thank you. I'm about to hand over to William Bird again, who's going to give us a closing remarks.
Thanks, Handel. And we're going to end off with a video, so don't go because I know I'm boring, but this video is going to be really, really cool. So I wanted to just have a traditional vote of thanks. Just to say thank you so much, Corinne, for waking up really early and for delivering such excellent presentation and input. It's really brilliant, and we look forward to doing some more with Witness in 2021. Thank you so much, Kaylee, for your excellent input. We all know and love the work of Africa Check, so thank you for spending your time with us. Mr. Daile, you know we love you already, so thank you very much for your excellent input. Handel, thank you very much. This has been a very long week for Handel and their colleagues who are hiding behind the scenes there, have been working away like busy, crazy lunatic people. So thank you very much. We really appreciate all of your efforts and all those other MMA people who you can't see but are there with us in spirit. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to end now and allow Handel to play the video. Please watch this. It's really worth watching.
You need sound.
No sound. But it's so dumb.
There you go.
Theory.
Can you hear
so
now?
much information out there on the internet. But luckily
I
for you,
just restarted, I think.
These words, and I sometimes think that you can unpack a word and reveal deeper meanings within it. Allow me to explain. I've taken the word conspiracy. Does it tell us a little something about 5G? I think it does. We start with the word con. What is a con? Someone who is cheating you, telling you lies, a con job, a con artist. The con, what is the opposite of con? It is a professional golfer or progress or program. A lot of G's suddenly revealing themselves. How interesting. Or a GoPro is this little camera, isn't it? A G Pro, a GoPro. And so we have a string of G's. Air on G string is a piece of music, isn't it? Air on the G string, beautiful piece of music. A G string, of course, is also worn by a pro, but that's a different story. Sometimes you pluck on your G string, don't you, on a cold Tuesday? If you're playing a guitar, G, and then tar, when you say tar, you say thank you. And a hue is a young sheep, isn't it? Don't be a sheeple, people. Don't believe everything you hear. They'll pull the wool over your eyes. Now, you've got these lovely appearances of G. Of course, a G string, air on G string, was written by Johann Sebastian Bach, and he was played in the movies by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who would say constantly, "I'll be Bach." And Arnold Schwarzenegger is spelt with a number of G's because of his background. He was hungry. I think he was hungry. He looked like he ate a lot. So we've got a lot of G's there from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, the 7th letter of the alphabet is a G. The 8th letter is an H. If you put H and 8 together, you get hate. There's a lot of hate on the internet, isn't there? But if you put G and H together, you get Gate. Bill Gates, who invented Microsoft, which we hate. Little circle of life there. But also Bill Gates, plural. So if you add 7 and 8 together, you get 15. But because it's plural, you multiply it by 2, which gives you 30. But also the S could be a 5. So it's 30 plus 5, which is 35, which is 7 times 5. But we know that 7 is G. So now it's G5. Or reverse it, 5G. Are you starting to see? It's everywhere. And so then we take the next little focus here. Pi, Life of Pi. Wonderful movie. Boy, boat, tiger. Did you see it? I didn't either. But also pi, 22 over 7. And we know 7 is G, so it's 22 over G. Or 2-2. Archbishop, 2-2. Yes. Checkmate. You've got to check your mates. Check on your mates all the time. That's a little helpful advice that doesn't even relate to this. So we've got Life of Pi. Boy, boat, tiger. In Afrikaans, a tiger is a dier. We're not speaking Afrikaans, we're not allowed to anymore. So now you go from dier to tiger. What do you add? You guessed it. Another G. Another G. Always a G. And then finally, we've got piracy. And what does a pirate say? Of course, a pirate says, arg, arg. And how many G's are there? 5. 5 G's. Do you see the point I'm making? You're probably like me. You go onto the internet because you have a lot of questions about the world and you want some answers. The trouble is, there's a lot of information out there that looks true, that feels true, but simply isn't. Sadly, there's some people who just like to make things up. Whenever I see a piece of news that seems a little too interesting, I ask myself, where's this news coming from? Is it from a viable or reliable source? Are there other news sources reporting it? Are those reliable news sources? And if all the reliable news sources aren't talking about it, then perhaps I need to rethink the whole situation, apply some critical thinking, ask some more questions. The other thing I say is this piece of news going to make one group of people hate another kind of group of people? Is it going to cause another group of people to feel angry or afraid? And if that is true, then I have to ask, is this piece of news or information worth sharing? Ask the questions, even when you think that you've been given the answers. Remember, it might not just stop at 5G. And most of you don't have a flip chart available like I do. I get all my answers from my flip chart. You're not that fortunate. So keep thinking. And if you see anything dodgy on the internet, feel free to report it to www.real411.org. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And as I said in the beginning of the webinar, you can catch a lot of those videos on our different social media platforms, also our YouTube channel at Media Monitoring Africa. Thank you to all our speakers once again. Thank you for all who attended on a Friday, on a very hot Friday, if we might add. But we know that definitely what we got from today is really insightful and will definitely help us in the future. From us at MMA, we'd like to say bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Corinne. Thanks, Kaylee. We're done.